Okay, so now that we have finished off this piece over here, the next thing that I'm going to do is we are going to work on these pieces over here. Now, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of resolution to go with in any of our images to really get a close-up, but I know roughly how it looks, so it is definitely going to be an interesting one for us to work on. So, yeah, I think it's easier if I show you because it's a bit tricky to explain. Let's just go ahead and jump right in. Now, we only need to make one, and then the other one we can kind of like rip off from the first one. So if we do Shift A, Mesh, and we want to start with a cylinder. So we are going to first of all create a cylinder for over here, and we will extrude that cylinder down so that we get like a panel like this. After that we will create another cylinder like this, which we can then go ahead and like extrude out into this shape, and then merge those two together. And then on this cylinder we can just create like our screws and everything. And we can go about it like that. So having this cylinder, I think that 32 sides is a little bit too much. So let's go for maybe like 18. Yeah, let's just go for 18 just in case. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to duplicate the cylinder. Just because I know that I will need it later on. So for this one, let's start by scaling down. Getting the scaling right, it's a bit tricky to do that first, so we'll just see how far we go, and we'll probably need to measure it using this shape over here. But before I want to do that, I just want to go ahead and grab the cylinder. Then if you go to edit mode, we can go ahead and we can delete these faces over here. And then we have these faces over here. And we can just go ahead and say Q and just separate the selection for now. You can also like split the mesh. You can do it by, I never really do it. If you go to like, what is it? Vertices. There's, oh here, mesh, split, and then selection. And then you can just move the faces, but I'm so used to just doing it this way because I like to just move this, select this, and just press Ctrl J again. So pretty much does the same thing. And now once you've done that, you want to just select these two faces, press Q, and bridge the edge loops. Same over here, Q, bridge edge loops. There we go. So now we have like this little base shape that we can start with. So at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and do a quick pivot because I need to do some measuring. So I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees. And we are not going to tilt it yet because that will just make our lives a lot harder. I just want to go ahead and measure it in here. So on this shape. And you just kind of like want to imagine like, okay, we need to have two of those. So I'm going to go ahead and, yeah, so if you imagine that later on we will rotate it like this. So what you can do is you can rotate it using snapping like this. Scale it up until the amount that you want. So let's say I want to have something like this. And because it's snapping, you can rotate it back and it will just be perfectly 90 degrees again. Or you can go into items and in here you can also play around with your rotation and set it exactly to 90. So there are many ways to do this. But anyway, the goal for this is that we have this base shape over here. Now what we need to do is we need to go ahead and we need to like grab another cylinder around it, and based upon that we can then create this shape and then we can like move them all together. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to grab you over here. It might sometimes be tricky when you work with such small pieces because it's a lot of zooming in and out. But yeah, let's just grab this. And basically for this cylinder, you want to just go ahead and place it. I think we want to place it just outside of the lines if I look at my reference. So with that I mean if we place this like, I don't think it's in the center. Maybe from this line to this line over here. So we just try and like scale it, see? So that they are on those two lines. And then we can see that here, it's coming out of the line a little bit. And you can kind of like take it from there. Now I have a feeling like this is too thick. So I have the urge to kind of like scale it down a little bit. Maybe if we go from, yeah, I think a scaling like that would be right. Now, when you scale something like this, you can see that it is squashed. So after you've done scaling, you just need to go ahead and you need to like select the top and then scale this a little bit in to make it nice and round again. Same over here. Scale this in to make it a bit nice and round again. And now we can go back to our cylinder. Same idea still with those two edges over there, so we can nicely like create a cut. Okay, so we basically end up, move you back, just in geometry so that I have somewhere to focus on. So yeah, we basically end up with something like this. So they are later on going to be merged together like this. And now, as you can see, it's really hard to see, but there is like a little bit of flaring up. So maybe a better one where I can... this one is a little bit different, so they're all a little bit different, so you don't need to be too picky. But basically, as you can see, there's often like a little bit of flaring up going on. And then we have our cylinder, and then this one... I don't know, because we have our second one, if I go back... So that is a simpler one, but over here what you can argue is that this one looks quite interesting, and then over here we can have like the simpler one. So because of that, I'm probably not going to go ahead and pick the other one. I'm just going to stick with this one. So let's say that we have this. Now the next thing that we need to do, and I am looking at my reference, we need to decide the scale for this. So select this one. Go to face select and let's see. So this one has like, let's set it up until this point. Do a Shift E to extrude it and just right click to move it into place. So this is just that I already have an edge there for later on. And it looks like what it does is it's really hard to see with these pixels. So I'm kind of going to make it up. It looks like that this will later on ramp up a little bit. Then this one goes inwards, outwards, extrude, and then bevel it to make it smooth. I think that is the way to go. So since we need to move this outwards first, what I want to do is I want to go in here. And I probably want to just do Ctrl R, and I want to place a segment very close to each point over here. Here and here, so that I can now select these two edges, and I can say, you go a little bit out, then over here, select this edge, move this forward, you sit against this point, like this, so this is all sticking out. Then what we can do is, yeah, we can already merge these together. So what I had in mind, and I am kind of winging it here because it's always... I've done it before, but it's just a really annoying shape to do, pretty much. So you kind of like want to get rid of these. Oh, and also get rid of like the back face. You cannot really see that I'm selecting it, but just delete that. So we are getting rid of that. And then over here, I think we want to keep in this roundness. So yeah, let's keep in that roundness. Now let's just select these two, press Ctrl J to join them. And now what we can do is we can get rid of these two edges here in the center. And I think I want to go for like a target rod. By the way, if you get this, so we are working with really small shapes, so sometimes it's cutting out. Now, be careful with doing this, but if you go to your view, you can set the clip start lower. To 0, clipping is what you can see over here. So if I set this to 0.05, I can look closer. However, that sometimes causes problems when we use certain tools like the cut tool, for example. Meaning that we want to keep that in mind, and as soon as we don't need it anymore, we just want to get rid of it. So now you can turn on target weld toggle, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to weld my top piece down to my cylinder. I think that is the best way to do it. You can do a merge by center, but I don't think I want to like edit the cylinder shape in any way like this. There we go. Turn off target weld toggle. And now the next idea was to select these edges, Q, and do like a bridge edge loop. We don't have actually enough, here Q, bridge edge loops. We don't have enough segments, because unfortunately doing this, it might work, but I personally I think it often just breaks it and it doesn't really look very good. So I like to just like create a loop like this. And then I double click on this one. Do a new face from edge. Double click on this one. New face from edge. And then I just tend to fix it later on when I'm more happy about the shape. Same way as that we fixed those pieces over there. So here, Q. Oh, well, I guess new face from edges also works. But let's just do a bridge edge loop. Bridge edge loops. Double click. New face from edge. New face from edge. Because I'm first just focusing on how the shape looks. And as you can see, we are slowly getting to that shape over here. Now, I do want to keep you in mind and imagine that this is going to be a high poly. It might look a bit silly in the low poly, but in the high poly it will look much nicer. So we got this. Let's have a look. It looks like that it goes here and then it scales in. Then it does an extrusion that is a bit flat. Then it does another extrusion that scales out. Quite a bit actually. And then another one that sticks like this. And now the first thing that I need to do is I need to actually have a look at the scaling at the overall scaling. First thing I can see is we probably want to move this all back. Because right now it's just sticking out a little bit too far. These ones, I probably want to just go ahead and scale in a little bit more. Because else they look a little bit too silly big. Here, see? So that is probably a bit more. What I'm going to do is I'm probably going to scale this in a little bit more. Like this. And then move it a bit closer to still give us like that bevel over here. And once that is done, you can select this backside. And we can do like a Ctrl B. Oh, we just need to go to object mode, Q, and reset the transforms. There you go. Ctrl B. Use a bunch of segments. There we go. And now if we just double click on this edge, we can also do Ctrl B. And we can give it like 3 segments. So this is going to be like a bulge. And then these two also, because everything in this shape is fairly smooth. So just give it like a few segments, like just 2 is enough. Because we are more focused on the high poly. So let's say we have like something like this to start with. Now as you can see, there is like something against it still. Because the cable needs to go somewhere. So this against it with the cable, that will look a little bit more like... yeah, here, see, you can see it like a little bit. There we go. I think we will now go ahead and go from like something like a stem point like this. So we are just going to create a cylinder that you want to stick against it. Now, with this shape, I just need to figure out where exactly I want to catch this against it. And of course, yeah, we also need to create like some piece against there. But let's start with this. We can just boolean this. I just wonder, well, let's just grab a cylinder and let's just see. Let's grab U. I like to have just the same amount of segments constantly. Let's rotate this cylinder and scale it down. And let's just see what looks best, basically. Because it's a balance between it needs to look logical, but it also needs to look good. So we can start with quite a small diameter. The reason we can do this is because we can just increase it later on. So first of all, I want to see how it looks if I go from like here in the center, for example. Maybe if we make this a little bit more flat and sticking it out. Let's make it a bit thinner, maybe. Of course, I'm now improvising a little bit, so do keep that in mind. Just before, I think just before does look fine. Like here, that does look logical. But if we do this, yeah, see here, that just doesn't feel right. So let's go for just before. Now what we're going to do is we are going to turn this into a bevel. For that, it's always easier if we have like the same amount of segments on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in this one. Go and double click on this edge and just Ctrl backspace because it's too close to the other one. Move this here. this edge, let's move it over here. Let's move this one over here. And this one we can probably just move like this. Like this. And then at that point we no longer have a match. So let's do this one over here. Let's do Ctrl R, place another edge here. We probably don't even have to do a boolean. We can probably just cut it up like this. So if you then place like an edge here. This one I'm not a big fan of actually, because this one will interrupt our... Here, this one will not really interrupt the flow, but this one, when we turn this into high poly, having an edge there all of a sudden will probably interrupt the flow. So let's just see if we can avoid that for now. But basically the idea is that you go in here, and then where you have your cylinder, you just use your cut tool, and you basically just start cutting around it. It's a little bit different than a boolean. It is the same basic concept as a boolean. Here, just go around. But the reason I'm going to do it this way is because it's often just... It will often give you a cleaner result than a boolean will. Because else we would need to do that cleanup anyway that we've done before. So I figured, why do the cleanup if we can just do this? And now if you just go ahead and move your cylinder... yeah, I think we need to do some editing. Let's... Sorry, I have that shortcut. That's a quite annoying shortcut that I cannot seem to change. Let's go to sometimes over here to these vertices and just try and select them. And I'm just trying to kind of like switch between my Alt-X view. Here, let's move this one up a little bit. So that it is still, especially this one over here. Okay, that one is fine. That one can go here. This one doesn't really do anything, but I'll just move it nicely in location. Okay, so now we get to those points. Let's first of all finish off this one. Okay. Okay, so let's have a look. Now if we press K, place one cut here and one cut here. I need to be very careful that I do not accidentally break the flow of geometry. So we will honestly just have to have a look in our final high poly later on. But yeah, we can do the same concept over here where we press K here to here. There we go. That should do the trick. So once you're confident that that will work, what you can do now is you can just go ahead and you can select the inner side. Oh, I'm just clipping into it. That's why I can't even see the inner side. So sometimes clipping is also handy. But for now, we basically just cut out the inner side, deselect this one. And maybe it cannot see that edge really well. Does it have an edge? I think what we need to do is we just need to press K. Just place a cut like this. And another cut from here to here. Yeah, there we go. Now we can deselect that. See? And once that is all done, you can just press delete. And now it's just a matter of, let's say, grabbing this one, deleting the backside. And what I tend to do is I tend to, just to work a little bit more precise, set this just in front of it so that I can easily see it. Press Ctrl J. And then just go ahead and go to vertex mode, target weld toggle. And now you can just start welding each vertex. And because they all have the same amount of sides, it should weld properly like this. And then yeah, for those vertices over here, actually we can just press Ctrl backspace secretly. No one will notice. So, not that it is a secret, I don't know why I said that, but you get the point. Let's go ahead and just... This one, I will move this, but this vertex, I'm just gonna move it... let's move it up. Actually, let's move this one also like that, so that it doesn't give me that much of a change. these two. Then this one, I'm just going to press Ctrl Backspace to get rid of it. This one. There we go. So this is another technique. If you don't want to use booleans, you can use this technique. Sometimes it works great. Other times it's of course easier to just use a boolean. But now if we do target toggle, we can double click here. And let's see if we can just kind of like loop around it. I feel like I'm still missing something. What I can try is I can try to just select it. Press Q and merge by distance. Okay, so I'm not missing anything. I just have a feeling that... No, didn't mean to do that. I have a feeling that these edges over here. Let's do a target toggle. It feels like that these are not connected to the right pieces. Or is that just me? No, that does not feel connected. Now it does though. I just tend to double click on it. I was actually expecting it to loop around all the way, but that's no problem if it doesn't. It just sometimes happens. Yeah, okay. I think that is merged together. So once you've done that, what we can do is turn off target toggle. We can now go down here. So now that we have this piece, once we turn this into a high poly, it will look really nice and smooth. However, in this case, for now, what we're going to do is extrude it out, give it a little ring, and then extrude this out a little bit more. And then we will make this separately, the bolt on top of it. So I don't need to really worry about that. So let's see. Extrude this out up until around like here. Let's do Shift E and then just leave it in place and scale it out. Shift E and then extrude this. And that should already be it. So because we will have a bolt sitting on top of that. There we go. Okay, in the next chapter we will just go ahead and we will start by creating the screws that hold it all together. And after that, what I will do is I will just continue with like the second one. And then later on we will just go ahead and turn this into a high poly. So let's continue with that in the next chapter.